Hello, Shafras.
Hey Jasin,
How are you?
after 1 month's time, we are back.
Yeah, our last in the cloud for the year.
Yep, last in the cloud for the year. Super excited. And I think we have a very interesting theme today.
Yeah. And yeah, so welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in and joining us today. So I'm Jasing and this is Shafras. This is Shafras, and we are both from the Google Developers Relations team. We hope everyone is keeping safe and well wherever you are. Do let us know where you're tuning in from, be it from Singapore or Indonesia or any other country in the region. And before we begin our sixth in the cloud event, and which is our last one for the year, let us just share a little more about who we are and what this is all about. Google Developer Space is a home for developers and startups from around the region to learn, connect, engage, and be inspired. We want to empower and connect the community to our people, programs, network, and technologies. Without further ado, I would like to pass the stage over to Shafras, our main host for tonight. Shafras,
All
do
right,
share with us more about today's topic and the awesome speakers we have joining us.
awesome. Thanks, Jasin. Thanks for that introduction. It has been 6 months since we started in the cloud session. It's pretty fantastic. It was quite a journey together. Um, we had Jasin joining, we had Joey Pang joining in different events. If you can remember, if you were with us for last couple of events as well. So today we'll have our last event for this year because December we are gonna take a little bit of break. So we can plan out another topic that we can discuss in 2021. So do let us know in your comment section if you want us to talk about any of the different topics in the future. So this in the cloud session is kind of different. We like for last 5 episodes we were speaking about technology. We were talking about like different tools, technologies inside Google Cloud. This time we thought, hey, let's change it up a little bit. People do have questions around career, how
Yep.
they can build their career in cloud technologies, how they can become cloud engineers specifically. So there's so that you can plan out for 2021 how you want to structure your year and what type of things that you should be caring about, etc. So I think when Jasin and myself we spoke about this idea, then wow, I think there'll be a lot of interest as well because it's definitely an important topic to talk about because you might know technologies, but if you don't have a career to pursue, then it's might not be the ideal situation that it should be. So I think without taking much time, we can actually introduce our speakers. So let me flash their banners and whom that we have today. So the first speaker, or rather the panelist that we have today is Wisu Suntoyo. He's the customer solutions engineer from Google Cloud Indonesia joining with us. And then we have the second speaker, the second panelist joining with us today is Divya Gelot. She's a Google developer expert in cloud, focusing on data and analytics. And she's also the solutions lead at Johnson & Johnson's Private Limited here in Singapore. So we have Wisu joining in from Indonesia, and we have Divya joining with us today um, uh, from Singapore. Awesome. So with that note, without taking much time, let me add Divya and Wisu to the stage. Awesome. Hi Divya.
Awesome.
Hi
Hello.
Wisu.
Hi,
Thank you for
Hi.
Shaf.
joining.
Hi. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Good evening. Hope both of you keeping safe as well. And thank you for taking time
Thank
to
you.
speak to our audiences. And thank you for being a part of In the Cloud session as well. There were like a lot of questions coming in since it's about career development. It's about how to become a cloud engineer. Since you both have experiences in cloud industry, I think we can have very good, insightful discussion today. So, it's like what we usually used to do was in the cloud session, we used to have two segments. We used to have fireside chat and a deep dive session. But today, what we did was we combined those together so we can have a much more in-depth understanding about becoming a cloud engineer. Awesome. With that, let's start off with the questions because I'm pretty sure most of you are super interested to know what our panelists has to say about different topic areas. Awesome. So before we start off, Divya and Visu, so we would love to know a little bit about your background, how you came into where you are now. So if you can explain a little bit about your career journey so far. Awesome. Divya, Visu, who wants to go first?
I'll go first, okay? Is it...
Okay.
or normally ladies first, perhaps?
You can go ahead. I can
Okay. Okay, yes, so good evening, everybody. Very happy to be here. My name is Wisu Suntoyo. I am the Customer Solutions Manager for Google Cloud in Jakarta. I am based in Jakarta. I started my career in 1999, so today it's 21 years. At that time, I started as a programmer, specifically programming machines instead of applications. And then I shifted into systems administrations when I managed the network for the company. Um, that's where I had a lot of exposure, a lot of knowledge within the Windows primary domain controller. At that time, it was called that. After that, I moved companies, and then I got in touch with. I moved to a multinational company, which is Telstra, the telecoms company out of Australia. They had an office in Indonesia, and I was managing that office. I was involved with a lot of technologies. At that time, the prominent technology I was working on was actually novel netware. Now, today, this application, this service is already expired. It's already extinct. It's not there anymore. Um, it's not active anymore, and Novel has since moved on to Linux. So they've not worked on that anymore. It's not a product that they're selling anymore. After that, I got involved into a lot of open source activity. I focused on Linux. I focused on soft system administration on Linux, particularly deploying web servers, deploying email services on Linux. After that, I ventured into my own startup, into my own company. I built my own company, which was more into human resources. And also, there was a second company I ventured into, which was building software for enterprise customers. And that's where I had a lot of experience with. Back then, it was services running in data centers instead of in the cloud. But uh, truthfully, running my own business was a challenge. So I went back into the job market. And with my experience in developing applications, I landed a job in a startup where essentially I was what you call, it was around 2014, what you may call now a cloud engineer. But at that time, I was managing a team. I was also as developing the high level architecture of the company. And then I moved over to Axiata, where I was still within the similar role, managing developers and also managing the overall architecture of the company, designing it, choosing the services, and so on and so forth. And then after that, I took on the role for customer solutions manager in Google Cloud, where I am now. Thank you.
All right, that was an interesting journey, and it has been 21 years. Thank you, Misu, for sharing that with us. So, Divya, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, I have started my career as an application developer back in 2006 after fresh out, like as a fresher from college, after doing my MTech in computer science. And then you being a woman, so like I got married, then I had a kid, so I had to take a break for almost 3.5 years. And then when like I wanted to return to work, it was like a journey for me, like whether I should go back to the same application development or should I join a technology which was like started blooming, like which was big data. So I thought, okay, it's better to like learn, like you have to like do a bit of like study and all those stuff. Like it's better to move on theirs. And then I have like after a little of struggle, I have got into a big data. I joined PayPal as a big data developer. It was a like short contract for me, and that's the very first time I got introduced in 2015 as a private cloud. So I set up a big data cluster in a private cloud, and since then, like no going back for me. And I'm doing architecture and solutions in cloud and multiple clouds, which I have doing like all the major clouds. I have got experience on it. And then I got worked on startup as well. After PayPal, I moved on to a startup, and then that's where I got to know the real challenge, like what it is means about to have a infrastructure on a cloud and infrastructure on premise. So that's where I got a lot of experience, real time experience, where we had to, in a startup, we had to make a decision, like whether you should go to the cloud or you should have it in on premise. And from there, I built so many products in data and analytics. Currently, I'm working in Johnson and Johnson. So and then there, like where we have all the major clouds platforms. So that's where my journey is. And then because I struggled a lot when I wanted to return to work. So I thought, okay, it's better to that's where how can I contribute to the community? So I started contributing to the community in 2018. It was very few people used to join us, like 10 or 12 people. But it was okay, we don't want to have any talks or something. We want to empower people where they can have a hands-on experience. Like how can they go if they want to have their career in big data or cloud, how can they do so? And almost since then, no going back, I'm on my way on my career in cloud computing, as well as my career, doing community contribution, so that what I'm learning, I would like also people to learn and do a hands-on experience. And if they would like to change their career in cloud computing, they can do so. So yeah, this is all about me.
All right. Thank you, Divya. Thank you for sharing your story as well. I think both Wisu and Divya, both of you had a different type of experiences, different type of things that you focused on. I'm sure the audience will be able to gain a lot of insight from it. And I see there are questions coming in as well for both of you. So we'll take those in the Q&A section, towards the end of the panel discussion. So if you have any questions, please do comment it in the live Q&A. So we'll be able to pick those up during our Q&A session. And I would also love to inform you that stay until the end, because there'll be a feedback form that you will have to fill up, that we would love you to fill it up. And also the important best part is you can stand a chance to win some prizes, surprise prizes from Developer Space as well. Cool. All right. So the second question goes to Wisu. So there were a lot of questions around people coming in, as in, hey, who is a cloud engineer? So Wisu, who is a cloud engineer?
Yeah. So early this year, before the pandemic hit, LinkedIn posted the most demanding skills for 2020. Now, this was before the pandemic hit. And on top of that list, hard skills was cloud computing, right? So especially today, as accelerated by COVID, digital transformation is high priority, and demand for cloud engineers is much bigger. Now, here is where organizations need talents who have the skills to help them drive the technical architecture, design, and deliver the systems that are running in the cloud. Essentially, it is that a cloud engineer manages the delivery of the organization's cloud systems. Also, to some extent, be part of the design and architecture of services running within the cloud.
All right. So that's a very good explanation, Visu. Thank you for that. I think that summarizes what a cloud engineer's role is. And you actually summarized as in they'll have to be a part of it's about whatever the things that you do in the cloud, you will have to kind of think about how you manage the cloud systems that you have in place, how you design, how you put architecture into place. So
So yeah,
that yeah,
maybe perhaps I'd like to add on,
yeah,
depending on the size of the organization, sometimes that role may
yeah,
not be a specific engineer, right?
yeah,
It can be, in fact, the CTO of the organization if that is a startup, right? So
yeah,
with this, when you're in a startup, sometimes you may be that person who is deciding what technology to use, and that essentially is the knowledge of a cloud engineer. In my role, when I started in the startup, I was the head of engineering, but I also played the role of the cloud engineer because I was architecting the whole design, and
yeah.
there were a few people under me that were managing the day to day as well.
Yeah. So Visu, do you think like now, like a cloud engineer? Now you mentioned that like a CTO, if you're in a startup, the cloud engineer would be the CTO, can be the CTO. So if you take like a large organization, um, do you think a cloud engineer would get involved with this architectural design activities mostly, or would they get involved mostly on the kind of the operation side of it, operation side
There
of
will
cloud?
also be, yes, as I mentioned, in my experience
Yeah,
when developing systems, at many times I would involve the cloud engineer also to support that. It's not just the sole role of the architect. So
yeah,
there are cloud architects and there are cloud engineers, right? But that is where a lot of times the designing has to involve each of these roles, right? Because
yeah,
then they would have to identify how would they how would it make it easy for them to automate things. As we know,
yeah,
when you're running things on the cloud, it's pretty much a lot of things is automated, right? And that's
yeah.
where a lot of times the interaction between the architect and the engineer is super important.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. So the third question, which will be around like people who are interested. So this question goes to both Divya and Visu. So people will be interested. Hey, yes, I know I want to be a cloud engineer, but there's this question comes in. What are the sort of educational qualifications should I have? What are the type of experience or the background should I have, right? So in situation like that, what's your opinion in terms of the education background or the experience background matters to become a cloud engineer? So we can
Uh,
do the yeah. Go ahead, Yusuf.
Sure.
Apologies, I think there's background noise. I'll mute myself a bit.
Sure.
When you talk about like
Yeah.
what kind of experience do you need to have it, it's not like you should have some specific experience to become a cloud engineer. You can start from like whatever skill set which you have it. If you're an application developer, how to develop things on the cloud, you can start with that. If you have a network security engineer, you can develop your skills how to have the network and security in the cloud. If you're like a data analytics person, like if you're a data analyst or data engineer who are like developing applications in data engineering, you can start from there. So there's no specific, but yeah, you should definitely need to have the cloud fundamentals. Like what's the difference when you work on normal on-premise architecture and what's the difference when you work on a cloud architecture. So for whatever role which you're gonna play as a cloud engineer or data engineer in the cloud, you should have that fundamental knowledge or fundamentals of it. That should be very clear. Like what's the difference does it make? Like
Yeah.
it's we everybody understand it's a very like broad term. If we need to talk about it, like okay, cloud is very flexible, but when we talk about there's so many services which are available using the cloud, right? So then you need to understand where to use those services, where I can use and what's the best fit, how do I connect the dots. So that's the thing which you need to understand when you think about like how you need to proceed to become a
Yeah.
cloud engineer.
Awesome. So Divya, do you have any specific sort of educational background do you think a person should have, or that's irrelevant?
It's irrelevant, I would say, like, but yeah, definitely, as I mentioned, right, you should have it, and then you should have definitely a hands-on experience. You should proceed. You can do a hands-on. Now, all the major cloud providers, right, they provide you
Yeah.
to like have a like a free account where you can
Yeah.
learn what are the services like specific to your domain a cloud provider provides it. So that's the
Yeah.
first step, which even I started with that only, like signing up with a free tier account. And that's where you so I don't think you should have some specific experience as such,
Yeah.
but you can grow your, so you don't have to divert your career. Okay, you don't, okay, it's kind of off track thing, like, okay, now I'm like working as an application developer, maybe I'm a Java developer doing application development, but now how do I move it? Like, it's a big change for me. That's not the case when you need to move to the cloud. Or if I'm like a kind of a network and security infra engineer, how do I need to take a, like, it's more a off track, or a, like, I need to learn a lot to make it happen. So
Yeah.
that's not the case. Yeah, definitely all your experience which you have collated all through your through the work experience, that definitely gonna help.
Got it. Awesome. So, Visu, what do you think from your point of view?
Yeah, so I've observed a few companies mentioning that they require somebody with a STEM background, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics background. But like Divya mentioned, I don't feel that is irrelevant. I feel that it is a skill that can be learned without that kind of educational background, right? A few weeks back, I had the luxury of talking with the principal engineer from Google Cloud, a very famous person, Kelsey Hightower. He mentioned that um, he mentioned that um, he mentioned that he was self-taught with cloud technology, right? So sorry, there was some noise that had me distracted a bit.
No problem.
He mentioned that he was self-taught with cloud technology, and Google is much that. It is something that is very much accessible by people, and it's very much accessible and very easy for people to access these kind of technologies. It's a huge contrast to how I started my career, when we had to be in an organization that actually had to spend a large amount to actually purchase those technologies.
Yeah.
Now, from here, it gets a lot more easier, right? Because with GCP, in Jakarta, Indonesia, we've launched Juara GCP. And in Singapore, to my knowledge, it's Majula GCP. Now, these are very interesting ways for someone to learn about cloud technologies. And it can be done virtually without any cost, just the cost
Yeah.
for your computer accessing the internet. And that is something very very advantageous for anybody who has the willingness to learn about cloud technology.
Yeah. So I think that actually like I think gives people to kind of think, hey, if they had this idea or the notion of like if you want to become a cloud engineer, you should be having sort of a STEM sort of background, even though that's kind of a requirement mentioned in job vacancies, but it's like according to like both of your point of view, it's not so much relevant. Most important thing is it's having hands-on experience, being self-taught, etc. So I think it's a valid point, but I also would love to hear from both of you in a different question as well. Like even though we say it should be self-taught, you also need to have like professional experiences. Sometimes it might be kind of tricky or might be tough for some people to get into job market. So that will be a separate question altogether. Let's demystify that piece out as well. So let's move on to the fourth question. So this question goes to Divya. So Divya, now we spoke of now people should be having what type of background they should be having, right? So if we may to speak about the skills a cloud engineer should have, in your opinion, what are the type of skills that do you think one person should have in order to become a cloud engineer?
Yeah, so when we talk about the skill set, definitely, because cloud is kind of self-service. It's not like you have somebody, you have an infrastructure team who can help you. You have like application team. So you that's not the traditional organization which you used to work, right? So it's more of a flexible architecture which you are gonna have it, uh, or the infrastructure, I would say. So in order to like have it like more of self-service environment to run it by yourself, like maybe a team of people also, I won't say, but yeah, definitely you need to understand because Linux. So you need to understand the shell script. First of all, you should have that shell script knowledge to have it, and then some of the programming languages. Definitely, if you're like, I don't want to say like okay, but yeah, definitely Python, Java are which are like most popular languages people have it, and SQL. Definitely, we have a big query in Google Cloud which runs on which has the SQL, understanding. So if you have all those skill sets and the API skill sets, how things runs in clouds. So these are the basic skill set, I would say. And if you are from network and security background, like how the networking works, how the VPC setup works, how the virtual private networks or the security happens, how do this one. So all these things which would be relevant to the network and security engineer who are in cloud. So these are the basic skill set which you need to have it in order to have become a cloud engineer.
Yeah, awesome. So any soft skills that you think like cloud, it could be a cloud engineer for any engineer for that matter. What are the type of soft skills that do you think or foresee an engineer should have?
Soft skills, when you talk about soft skills, definitely when we talk about the building something on cloud, right? Any, whether it's an application or whether it's like a data analytics application, anything which you want to build on the cloud, definitely first of all you need to understand the requirement of your client. That's the first basic thing. That's the soft skills. You should have the understanding like what it is gonna look like, what I'm gonna do, what it's gonna benefit to my clients. So that's the first thing first we need, which you need to understand about it before you move on to the cloud infrastructure.
Awesome, nice. All right. So Visu, do you think do you want to add anything as well in terms of the skills?
Yeah, so basically Divya has outlined it very well, right?
Yeah.
I do agree with those talking points that she mentioned, right? Especially when you are trying out services, there's one thing to try those out, but to actually be capable of drawing in your mind or drawing on a piece of paper that this would be connecting to this and this and this, looking at taking a step back at looking at the high level of how what it is going to be looking like, right? And that is part of also what is learned when you are taking the GCP learning courses that we have in Coursera.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So the fifth question goes to Visu. So this is where we come. This is where we come to the question that I was talking about earlier. Now, the one of the most important pieces of this whole journey is CV. That's where a company would get the first impression if the person needs to come into an interview at least in the first place, and then how things could follow through. So this will CV will give a sort of a very good first impression about the things the person have done, the backgrounds that the person have, and if does it match with the requirements that they have posted, etc. Right? So now, Visu, according to your opinion, how do you think a candidate can showcase in a CV that he or she is proficient in a Google Cloud technology? Plus, if you can add a little bit more on, because we spoke about in one of our earlier questions that like even if you don't have like a STEM kind of background, you still can showcase some type of an experience and then get into a job, right? So how can they showcase that, and what type of things should they have done before they apply?
Yeah, so let's deep dive into a few scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps the first scenario may be perhaps when you are in a company where your role does not necessarily need uh, exposure to cloud technology, right?
Yeah.
So you can start by learning, right? You can start by learning and showcase these learnings within your CV, right? Demonstrate to the your future employer that you have an idea, you have a willingness to learn, right? And you can identify where you can start learning. Okay, so in many times when you're in an organization, it's also you are also looking at people who are adaptable, who are capable of learning, who actually have that. Now, showcasing that you are capable of learning via the resources that we have in GCP, that would be something that raises someone's interest to a certain individual when you're looking at the CV, and then from there you start maybe once you've got that kind of capability, then you start legitimizing this kind of knowledge that you've got, yeah, that
Yeah.
you've gotten. There are certifications that we have in Google Cloud. You can either take the Associated Cloud Engineer or the Professional Cloud Architect for that. Yes, that is something that you may have to go through, a test that you may have to go through. But considering when you're looking at a CV, when a recruitment manager, when a hiring manager is looking at a CV, they would most naturally try to pick out of the pile who is relevant, who is not, right? And showcasing this kind of capability, the certificate would certainly bring you higher within that pile and and get you to an interview.
Yeah.
Okay, moving higher, as already mentioned also by Divya, is actually showcasing what you've tried, showcasing what you've done. If you are in a role that's related to your exposure to cloud technology, then you could start explaining, outlining the type of technologies that you're using. You can start outlining what kind of products that you're working on, what type of technologies that is being you are implementing to solve your company's problems. So these are the few steps that I feel that you should consider when you structure your CV for a role as within the cloud.
Thank you, Visu, for that. So Visu, just to get an understanding that you mentioned, like it's always good to showcase what you have tried out.
Yes.
So should that be sort of a professional level experience, or can it be like the type of the POCs that they have built, or maybe should it be like if the person is a fresh graduate coming out of the university, should they showcase, because they will not have professional background, right? So should that be like the projects that they have done at university, or how it needs to be? What do you think?
Exactly. So I feel that it should be something that they can a project. It's not necessarily something that is work related. It could
Yeah.
be a personal project, right? Say, for example, Kelsey Hightower, he started as
Yeah.
a working in McDonald's, right? So when you're working at that kind of role, you're not even in front of a PC. You're not in front of a laptop, right? So
True.
that's where you should showcase your personal projects, right? Your personal projects. That's where you've tried things out, right? That's where you've got results, okay? And also perhaps if you want to go a step further, perhaps share links that you have within with GitHub or so forth, which can reference these. But from my experience as a hiring manager, I will just read what's on the CV, right? Even though it is something that is related to things like personal projects, right? I always value these kind of inputs, because that's where I see somebody has a learnability. Somebody is open to learn, right? So when you're in any company, you can't be expecting that the company be providing you solid lessons. You got to be, you have to be ready to learn on your own. So that's something I always view when I'm filtering out CVs.
Awesome. So I think you have got some idea from Isu around how you can showcase what you have learned. So the main thing is like if you want to showcase that you have tried out, first thing is you can do take a certification and also showcase the projects that you have done. It could be a personal project, it could be like a professional project or a work experience that you already do have. So like if you are wondering in case if you didn't get selected to any of these cloud engineer positions, go and check out if you have these type of kind of parameters in your CV. Awesome. So, Divya, from your opinion, if a person is being hired for a cloud engineer position, uh, what do you look for in during the interview?
Okay. So when I usually take the interviews for my own team members as well, right? So definitely, first of all, the cloud fundamentals. That's the basic thing, like how much a person knows about when we need to build up, like because we need to build things on the cloud. So he should have the fundamentals clear. He should know, like, okay, there's a difference between the infrastructure which is on cloud and the infrastructure which is on premise. What exactly the virtual machine means. So that's the basic thing which our containerization, like when we talk about Docker, because that's where we deal about, right? Kubernetes. So they should have the basic knowledge about it. Okay, if I need to build something on my cloud, if I need to have my application running on the cloud, these are the few basic things which I need to know about the cloud. And then first, another thing is like if you need to build like how, like because cloud is kind of flexible infrastructure, so you should know like as per your business use case what you're building. There's like many things which you can get it. So if when you talk about you have a big query, you have big table, you have a spanner, but what exactly fit to your requirements, right? So a person should know about it when they are building the pipelines on the Google Cloud. Does like do I need to, if I need to run my application on a cloud, do I need to like spin up all the virtual machines, or can I just leverage the app engine which will save me from all the infrastructure management overhead, and then I can just run my application. I just need to develop that application. So those kind of fundamentals a person should understand. Otherwise you will like spend most of your time like okay because a person who comes from on-premise background, or who comes from a traditional technologies where you have many teams working for you, you are just doing the development, or you are just doing the taking care of security part of it. But when it comes to the cloud, you are having all the pieces together in the cloud. So you should have understanding of all those things, how networking works in the clouds, how the security works in the cloud. Because many times it happens, right? Like even in my team also it has happens, like when they create a cloud storage, they open as a public one.
Yeah.
That's a data privacy issue which comes into the picture. So these are the basic things. Okay, when you're doing it, how do you need to expose the cloud services? How do you need to restrict it? These are the things which I usually look for a person, and that all comes from the cloud fundamentals. Because in traditional environment, all these things are taken care by a security team or a network team or a infrastructure team. But in the cloud, that's not the case. When you're building something on a public cloud, then you have to still take care. Like, how do I enable the APIs? If I need to connect two pieces on the cloud, they just not that connect to each other. You have to enable the APIs. So these are the few things which you need to take care when you are like, when I see a person, okay, he should understand, okay, the skill set which I look for.
Awesome. All right. So we have another question for both of you. Is that now we spoke about like like before you apply and during when you apply and during kind of the interview we had questions, and now we're going to talk about, as you have seen, what are two type of traits. Now let's say one person would get a job as a cloud engineer. So as far as that you have seen, from both of your point of views, is that what do you think a successful cloud engineer would have, like a top two kind of traits of successful cloud engineers?
For a successful cloud engineer, first of all, you should, again, I keep emphasizing, you should, so cloud offers three types of services when you talk about, right? A software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. So to become a successful cloud engineer, you first of all, you should understand all these services, which it falls in which categories before you leverage on it. Like, how do I leverage these services? Like app engine, that becomes a like a platform as a service, a managed service for me. But you need to understand all these fundamentals. If I need to do a quick data analysis, like can I use a BigQuery to like at least showcase my analysis, and then before I build a pipeline for my customer or my business, can I use that one for a quick one? Can I use a data studio for the quick visualization? So
Awesome.
these are because
Yeah,
you
David.
can connect to data studio, right? So the things you
Yeah.
need to like understand before.
Awesome. Cool. So Visu, what do you think?
I'd say analytics is important. Somebody who could look at a problem, not necessarily be locked into that problem, be capable of looking at what are the options and what is the root cause and how to actually resolve these kind of that particular problem. That is super important. Why? As Divya mentioned, there are so many services in the cloud. You can either be using infrastructure as a service, platform, or software as a service, right? But when you see a certain problem, that's where you should know what to use and how to use it, right? And also be capable of understanding what's available, right? So when somebody is on prem and they're using things like Hadoop, but they want to move to the cloud easily without changing anything, then what kind of services in Google Cloud should they be using? They could be just if it's something like a cloud data prop, that would make it easier. Why? Because it's just putting it over there, and that's where it is important for somebody to have that analytical thinking, to actually look at a problem and identify what is the root cause and how to solve it easily. That is my view.
Awesome. Thanks, Visu, for your take on that. So we are moving on to the final question from this panel discussion, and then we'll move on to the public Q&A. So this again goes to both of you. So if someone is planning to become a cloud engineer in 2021, what should they be start learning or doing?
Okay, maybe I'll take this question first and
Okay.
then I'll hand over to Visu. Yeah, so if somebody wants to become a cloud engineer, and then I'll walk you through like from my experience, right? Because I have been contributing in the tech community, and then I do have people like participants coming from different backgrounds. Like I have like managers coming for my workshops. I have like people from traditional technologies coming for my workshops, and then when they come to all these workshops, they wanted to understand how exactly, first of all, that how the cloud works. What's the different pieces of the cloud? These are the few things. But then that definitely in my hands-on workshops also the question comes in, okay, I have come for the workshop, now what next for me? Like how should I again continue learning? So I would say like definitely first of all you need to join all this community. These are very helpful, that will help you to like understand the market trend, like what's going on, what all the services, where you can use it, where you can like connect your dots in the cloud. So the tech community is very much beneficial, and then that was very helpful for me as well when I started my career in 2015 in big data. I myself did it. That's my personal experience, because I was returned to work mom. I did not have any tech community, like no technical. Even I lost all my professional friends also, right? So now how did I go for it? Then I learned about there's a meetup platform which you can sign up and then go to the tech talks or the events which are happening, and that helped me a lot to understand how people are growing in the community, how they are learning it. And that's where even I started my. So when I started going to the event, I said, okay, most are up from for talks, like, so let's have the hands-on so that people can learn more. So these are first, like, you keep connected within your tech community, make your own meetup groups, you can do it, you can create your own that. And definitely there are so many things which are, other thing is like hands-on learning. So you have learned, you have gone to a workshop, you have learned, but now how do I proceed? So there are few things which I could say it, like, which I have like also done it by myself. There's like free Google GCP account you can sign up for. You can learn through those, create your own projects, and then you can always like shut down all those services as soon as you are done with your learning. Another best thing is, like, if you don't know that one also, to do it by yourself, there's a quick labs, which is like very good platform for learning. If you want to learn about the cloud, you can done all those quests, and these are like time bound, and it has all those instructions, like how to do it, what all the like steps which you need to go through it. That will be very helpful to first you understand what's going on in the Google Cloud, what's happening in the cloud, how the services are connected, which one to use when. And then you can proceed with your own, creating your own POCs or creating your own projects. So that's what my advice to people who wants to learn more in the cloud, to understand if they want to make their career in cloud.
Awesome. So that's some inputs from Divya for your cloud journey in 2021. So Visu, what do you think?
So it's pretty much similar with Divya, perhaps, but I would suggest somebody to take a step back and have a plan, right? Structure your year within a plan, because when you are as a cloud engineer, you can either be focusing on infrastructure, or you can either be focusing on, as Divya is, on smart analytics, data analytics, right? These are very different very different skill sets, and it'll take a Superman to actually be strong at all of these, right? And hiring managers are not expecting that, right? So you should sit back and devise a learning plan, and within this learning plan, you identify what you're going to be, what you want to be, what kind of role, what is that role relevant to your current role. If it's not, then you've got quite a bit to learn. But if it is, then it may be just a step further. Okay, from this learning plan, and then you can identify what you should be learning. Surround yourself with the people that's supporting you to learn. As Divya mentioned, you could be joining communities and so on and so forth. Today, with the pandemic, these communities are easily accessible via online resources like this. So with that plan, you can identify where you go, what your steps are, right? What should you be learning? What should you be learning first? What should you be prioritizing? Now, this is true when you go through the certification process that Google Cloud has. It actually drives you. It actually puts you through a learning plan that has already been well structured by Google to a specific technology, which is either the associate cloud engineer or the professional cloud architect, right? So you should take a look at that, build one of your own, including one of these certifications into that, and build one on your own, whether you want to go into data strong into data, or strong into infrastructure, or strong into networking. But you should take that and identify the roles, the path that you will be going through, right? And then start learning, and then start working on that. Now, the learning plan is, I suggest you keep something like a Google Docs, right? So because we're in Google Docs, but that is why I feel it's important, because it's something you could put on your mobile and you could constantly check, right? It's something that you can also look and see and tick the boxes. Hey, I've not done this yet. I've not learned this yet. I've not done this yet. It is something which is easily accessible within your pocket, within Google Docs, and you could actually look at that and identify that. Now, think of the learning plan as a blown up, deep, in depth of your CV. Your CV may be a crystallized version of this learning plan, which just focuses on the results. But the learning plan is essentially that, a blown up version of your CV where you can identify where you should be learning, where you should be focusing on, and where you should be heading to.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Visu. Thanks, Divya, for those insights. I think that's very insightful. As in, if someone wants to become a cloud engineer or maybe pursue a career in cloud for in 2021, this is helpful. Like, have a plan, go for meetups, get hands-on as much as possible, put down into places, so that will be a journey rather than like a sprint. So you want to go that marathon, you need to run that marathon together with whatever the resource that you can find. And I think both of you iterated an important point, is that to become a cloud engineer, it will take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and you need to work for it. Because like some of us might think, hey, I want to become a. You wake up in the morning and think, hey, I want to become a cloud engineer. It's and then you try to kind of like do different things, and hoping that you will become a cloud engineer. It's not the case, but rather it's kind of a journey. Have a plan. So when things put into perspective, as Divya mentioned, you will see different dots are being connected for your kind of the success for your journey in 2021. Awesome. With that note, we'll be concluding the panel discussion, but we'll be answering your questions in the live chat. So before we move on to the live chat, we actually do have a couple of questions came in during the sign up process. So the first question, all right. So this is the first question that we have from the audience that we had while they were signing up. So the question is: so every role has risks. What kind of risks should we endure as a cloud engineer? How do we deal with it? So who wants to go first?
Maybe I will take that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what kind of risk when you talk about, like, I believe that question is all about, like, as a cloud engineer, when you are on a job role, what kind of risk that you take it up, right? So when we talk about this, definitely the cloud is kind of flexible stage for you to play. So first of all, you need to understand that's the risk which you are taking. Like, is it the service which you are leveraging on the cloud? Is it the right service? Like, how do I need to know about, like, is it the right service? Do I need to have like some understanding about this service? So that's the thing which you need to understand. Okay, this is the risk which you are taking. There are multiple services on the cloud which you can leverage compared to that when you're in traditional background. Okay, this is what you have, like, okay, this is the virtual machine or this is the Linux server which is being provided to you, and you just need to leverage that one. But on the cloud, you have that flexibility. You can use the Linux servers, you can go to an app engine, or you can leverage any of the services, but that comes with a cost. So you need to mindful of that factors as well, and how, like, is it beneficial for whatever, for my customer or whatever product which I'm building on. So these are the things which you are taking when you are working on a cloud.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I agree with Divya. What cloud gives you is flexibility, right? It gives you the flexibility to deploy things, to run things, to try out services at a fraction of the cost as it would where if you were to try those on premises, right? If you were to learn big data analytics on premises, you'd have to spin up a Hadoop cluster of a few servers, which is expensive. right? You'll have to have those physical servers ready to test out. But within Google Cloud, no, the risk is rather is small because you could actually put it into BigQuery. But if you do take a different route, which is probably you're using things like Dataproc, then it is expensive. Why? Because it is something that is built by the time, not by the usage. So yes, there is that where you can the risk is small because you don't have to put a big purchase in the beginning. But if you use the wrong services, you may be using it not correctly. And if you're just testing out and you forget to turn those services off, it'll incur cost. It'll incur cost, which is not which you're not using. Now that's where proper proper education within Google Cloud, particularly with certifications, you would learn about what services and how they are charged, how they are built. So build. So that's where you can try out with services that are just built by when it's accessed, right? Like now we have Cloud Run or BigQuery or a lot of these software services that is built based on that. Now that's where there are risks. Agreed, there are risks in everything, but we should understand in depth about the details about what the components are to actually mitigate these kind of risks.
Awesome. All right. So we have another question.
To add on to,
Yeah, Divya, go ahead.
I was saying, just to add on to Visu's point also, like when how to deal with those risks, right? So you should learn, like, because there are so many. If you go to the Google Cloud documents, right, you should have like the best practices as well. So when you spin up some services, like what are the best practices which you need to follow?
Cool. Awesome. So we have another question. I am new in Google Cloud. Need to know how to start my career as a cloud engineer. I'm not very fond of programming. What is scope of solution architect or SysOps?
So yeah, that is true, right? And in many times, people are not very fond of programming. But when you're in the cloud, a lot of times you are expected to do automation where there is programming. But if you're lazy, you could always gain reference to other people's. A lot of times, those scripts are open sourced, and you could use that. But I'd suggest you actually read through those before actually blindly copying them. It may be dangerous if you don't do so. But the resources we have in this day and age, it makes it a lot easier for somebody with the willingness to learn, the willingness to try. So with that, with that, I think it is. I'd still recommend the asker to actually take on a career in cloud, because ultimately more and more companies are actually moving to the cloud because of obvious reasons, because of
Yeah.
technology, because of how Google has helped organizations around the world solve and innovate.
Cool. All right. So there's this another interesting question coming in from the pub, like live Q&A. Daniel wants to know, what are the chances of people who have some IT background over the age of 50 to become a cloud engineer?
Maybe I will take that question, because I have many people in my tech workshop who was like kind of age of 50 and then still used to come for my workshops, and they were not even from the IT background as well. And so again, it's the same thing. There is no, a bar for learning. You can always learn. So there's no age bar when you want to learn. So you can always learn. Again, the same thing applies. Like, do a hands-on learning, understand the cloud fundamentals, and then bring, because learning alone sometimes it's kind of difficult. So like get involved in the tech community, and that will help you. And definitely tech community, like as like the Google developer space is managing, they have all these talks and all those things that helps you like motivates you, like how do I go for this, all these things. So that's what I could say from my experience, where people used to come for my workshops.
Awesome. Visu, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, basically, age is just a number.
Yeah.
You shouldn't limit yourself just because of that. But when you're 50, you've got a lot more experience. You've got a lot more. You're more calm. You're there are a lot of things that you may have better than people who are younger. But you should leverage those, and you should not feel discouraged.
Yeah.
Everybody has advantages. If you're young, you've got a certain advantage. When you're older, you've got different types of advantages. But if you demonstrate the willingness to learn, like
Yeah.
how did you mention, being surrounded with people who are supportive of you to learn,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I started my career in cloud actually when I was 38. So to some, that may be okay. You already have your own company. Let's just focus on that. Let's just build that. Right? But there was financial problems with this company. That's why I had to push myself to learn, to uptake that, and to
Yeah.
actually absorb cloud technology to its fullest.
Awesome. All right. So we have this question coming to Divya. So Divya, Omar has 4 years of experience as a management consultant based in Dhaka, and now he wants to move into data analytics and cloud. How can he start?
Okay. Yeah. So when you want to move into the data analytics, again, you need to have those, you need to develop those skills. First of all, the cloud skills and the data analytics. Definitely, as Vishu already mentions, when you to have work in the data analytics domain, you need to have those analytics skills as well. How do I analyze the data, which is like beneficial for my customers, which are beneficial for my business? If you are working, if you are having your own startup, so that's, these are the few fundamental things, and then from there you need to build your skills. Okay, okay, I need to build a product, a data analytics product in cloud. So now how should I go for it? So these are the few things which you need to do it before you like, and then you can move, based on that you can correlate, and then you can connect your dots and then learn all those, like what all the data analytics products available in the cloud. BigQuery is the one of the one. Dataproc, you can Cloudflow, you can PubSub. These are the few data analytics. Like, and then how do you create a data pipeline in the cloud? So, like if you need to build it, there's a learning. Like there are the services which are available in the cloud, and how do you build that data pipeline to have like like is there? How do I, if I need to build a streaming pipeline, how do I build it? If I need to build like a batch pipeline, how do I build it? How, where do I store my data? So these are the few things which you need to understand if you need to build your career, or you need to understand what you need, what if you need in the data analytics, how the how the data analytics works in the cloud.
Yeah. Awesome. So we have a question for Visu. Yes, we know we are actually going a little over time, but I think since this session is so much interesting, we have bunch of questions coming in to both of you. So we'll be taking a little bit of more time to kind of answer a couple of more questions before we end the program. So stay tuned, and we'll be getting some of the questions picked up and answered. Yeah. So Visu, this is for you. So the question is, what prompts you to shift from a programmer job to a sysadmin back then?
So that was way back in 2000. And back then, programmers, sysadmins had more exposure. There were more opportunities with sysadmins. People did not really see a programmer as I use the word programmer because now usually people don't use that anymore. People use engineers, software developers. But back then in 1999, they called them programmers because they were just building programs specific for a specific use case. And at that time, you got no fame. You got not many opportunities there. And as I said, admin, there were a lot more opportunities, And rightfully, when I moved into sysadmins, the next job I took was a sysadmin job in Jakarta. So that programmer role was actually out of Batam. I think it's out of Singapore, right? It's close to Singapore. But I moved to Jakarta because of there were more opportunities with sysadmin. So that's where I feel that every individual should be looking at trends, should be looking at where things are going to. Right at that time, yeah, it was my first job, and I looked at the trend that moving that more people were going to sysadmins. People would get more easier jobs if they were certified, either Cisco or Microsoft MCSE at that time, and that's where I took my effort to learn this, to take this role, and eventually that was fruitful, and I moved to a different role. That was 10 years ago. So now trends are different. Now the trend is everything is moving to the cloud. Now that's where I feel a lot of people should be taking the shift from to cloud technology, whether you are a software engineer or even UX engineers. When you're on the business person, you should always also be looking at cloud technology supporting your business.
Awesome. So we have a question from Kong. This is not related to career per se, but he wants to know which is important, the back engine of a cloud system or app development, app platform development, how to overcome the shortcoming from a startup perspective.
So in my view, it goes hand in hand. Okay, so all these as an app platform developer, you should also understand how things work within the cloud. And many times when you're a front-end application developer, you also directly talk to services in the cloud, not necessarily via API calls, but when you're talking with using technologies like Firebase, it's directly linked from the platform to the backend. And when how you're going to look at authentication, how that is all defined by the front end. It also between the front end and the back end, people working together, working hand in hand. So, in my view, it takes there should be a work together, a synchronizing between the front end and the back end. It's not something that I feel is important just on the front end or just on the back end. I value these two as important, as both important important roles. Um, Again, it should be back to you whether you got so if you're stronger with the visual type of things, then yes, of course, your app development is much more attractive. It's much more there. But if you're analytical, if you're strong at that, then of course backend and so forth is much more. But again, that's back to the individual.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So I think we have time for one last question. So let me pick it up. So Cassandra, Cassie, I'm Cassie. I am confident about using cloud product to several cases, but I'm struggling to understand the best practices, considering security, latency, etc. How can I start to learn those concepts?
Okay, so maybe I'll take that question.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the security, definitely Google Cloud have integrated the security, which they have it in the Google engine, the search engine which we are using it. So it's secure. But yeah, when you talk about like, okay, if you need to use it in your own company, then how do you like secure it? So there's a like VPC net which you need to through that you can secure your cloud products. But when you talk about the best practices, you have the so if you want to start from it, you can always refer to the Google Cloud documents where they mention about, okay, what are the best practices which you need to use it. And few things definitely comes from the experience as well. As you work on the cloud, you need to understand what exactly, if you are working with a public cloud or working with a cloud which is like currently integrated, in your own company infrastructure as well. So there are two aspects of it. When it's already integrated with your company infrastructure, definitely you don't have to worry about the security part. But when you're dealing with the public cloud, definitely the security, like if I need to create a bucket, do I need to create it as a public bucket? If I'm creating a virtual machine, like do I want it to be accessible through the internet, or do you want it to be keep it as a private? If I'm creating a SQL database, like do I need to be accessible? So these are the few things. And when you talk about the latency, I don't think so. Like you don't have much issues with the latency in the Google Cloud, because that's where the base infrastructure of the Google Cloud works. It's like BigQuery has it's the fastest service, and then the by base of it's the back end of it's like it's hidden to customers. You don't know, but like millions of rows, you can in a fraction of seconds you get the data. So this is what the latency. So when you talk about the latency, definitely you don't have to worry about the latency part of it when you need to access the cloud services, specifically on the Google Cloud. Yes, security, definitely it's all managed by you, because it's a public cloud. So it's again depends on your application or the product which you're developing. How would you need to secure it? So you need to go back and understand more of this networking and security concepts of the Google Cloud.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Visu, what do you think? What are the best practices, and how can Cassie start learning about it?
So you've already identified a learning plan there. You've already ticked the boxes on cloud products, but you are now needing to tick the boxes on considering security, latency, best practices. So put this in a document, track that you need to learn that, and there are many documentations, as Divya mentioned, available in the cloud, people sharing best practices and so on and so forth. It's just that you've already identified, just search for that and tick that box. It's something that you've already identified for you to learn more, to gain more experience.
Awesome. I think with that, we'll be completing taking all the questions from the live Q&A section. There were a lot more questions coming in. I'm sure if time permits, we'll try to kind of continue this session for a different date in the future in 2021. So with that, I think there were a lot of comments around from Visu, from Divya, highlighting the importance of learning, having a plan, understanding what type of topics that you need to kind of cover in order for you to become a cloud engineer. So if you are interested in becoming a cloud engineer, and if you think, hey, Google Cloud is the place where you need to get started, so there's this one resource that I could share. This is for free of charge. It's available. Go sign up yourself, get free 1 month access to Quick Labs, and get access to Coursera as well, where they'll have they'll have structured programs taking you through a learning journey. So you'll be able to understand about different products and services inside Google Cloud while you are understanding about the cloud itself. Because any cloud will have a general type of available technologies or tools, or maybe like different approaches. So just go and check it out. This is free of charge, and you can get it signed up today itself. Awesome. So thank you, Visu. Thank you, Divya, for joining with us today. That was a very wonderful discussion that we had. Yes, we went a little over time, but I think it was useful for the participants. We had like a lot of people joining in today. So anyone last thoughts that you both want to share with the audience?
So I'd suggest get started on your cloud journey.
Yeah. Awesome. So Divya, what's your final thought?
So don't wait. Start your journey with Google Cloud, and it's like from my experience, it was an awesome journey. It was a good learning experience which you get it. It's not like, okay, it's kind of new thing which I need to learn. It's
Yeah.
not, don't take it as a workload kind of thing, but when you have the passion for learning, definitely you will get through it, and then you will fly in cloud.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Visu. Thank you very much, Divya, for taking time to talk to our audience today. Valuable inputs. I'm pretty sure we all of us learned a lot. With that note, I would leave both of you to have your dinner and enjoy your time with your family. And please do take care of yourself during this time. Thank you for joining, and good night for today. Thank you. Let me take you
Thank you.
back to the backstage. Thank you very much, Visu. Thank you, Divya.
Thank you.
All right. So with that note, we'll be concluding the final session for this month in the cloud session. And thank you all of us, or all of you who joined and asked questions. There were questions that we weren't able to answer, but I think we were able to cover most of it today. So let me flash the feedback form for this month. Please do go to this link, drop in your feedback for this month's session. So like as every month we were doing, we were taking your inputs, and we were changing the program, the approach, the topics that you mentioned about. We started speaking about those because it's about empowering you and taking you on a journey for you, so you can become successful in your career. So do leave us your feedback, and we hope all of you are keeping well and getting ready for holidays as well. So in December we'll be not meeting you up, but for sure in 2021, hopefully we'll be meeting back again with a different episode of In the Cloud session. And take a little bit of time, give your feedback. Until we meet again, stay safe and do take care yourself and your loved ones. Thank you for joining in today.